Well, it's hard to follow something like that. I lost a brother in the war in April 23rd of 45 in the Atlantic. But I met a lady this morning, 102 years old, and Lily Lou in the red, and we talked, but she grew up here, not too far over the railroad tracks.
Hold your
So
mic.
we were both born, she was born.
There we go.
Is that better?
That's better.
She was born before the Depression like I was. Calvin Coolidge was president, and they say, who's he? Well, he followed Taft. And Lily Lou, I'm sure, was born when Taft was president. And let's see, it was, I'll get out my sheet of paper. Clark County has a old people's part of the thing down on Maine. And let's see, Herbert Hoover was the president at the time that I was born, or after Calvin Coolidge came Hoover, and he was the one that got blamed for the Depression. And Lily and I had a great talk I talked about the old Mausonette Road, which was 25th Avenue, and the Cornburg Road was 88th Street. And she was born just up across the railroad tracks. And so we talked about things that we had in common back in the 30s. And I brought that along with me today. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what we grew up with almost 100 years ago. But she's 102 years old. I'll be 97 in February, and I'm 3 years away from 100, and it kind of scares you. To jump a whole century. We're talking a whole century. Anyway, the average income when I was born was $2,470. You could buy a new car for $525. Now, houses were going for $7,700. A loaf of bread was 9 cents. A gallon of gas was 12 cents. A gallon of milk was 57 cents. Gold was $20.67. Now what is it, 20,000 or
Yeah, 2,500.
whatever. Silver was $1.09, and the Dow Jones was 227. But I spent 30 months on the Iowa, and the Iowa is big. That's all you can say about it. My job was in the engine room, fire rooms, turbines, steering engine room, shaft alleys. And the Iowa is 3 football fields long, and it's about 3/4 of a football field wide. And if you look at the water line, depending on about how much fuel we had, from that line to the keel is 40 to 45 feet. We never went into Pearl because Halsey, who was the captain of the ship, would not take us in unless we went in on a high tide, but we also had to come out on a high tide, and that wasn't guaranteed. Bay is 42 feet, and we'd scraped bottom, and that was a no-no. But everything on the Iowa is big. I've learned more on YouTube, because they're making a museum out of it in the Los Angeles harbor. People have asked me, why don't you go down? I wouldn't recognize it anymore. They've taken the bulkheads out, and they put 2x2 square linoleum that's blue and white and yellow and blue and different things. And they've taken and cut a section out and put a metal beam up to hold the thing so it doesn't collapse. And but I wouldn't recognize it at all. So, but to give you a little idea of what we carried, fuel, bunker oil is like molasses. It has to be heated. And we kept it at 70 degrees in the tanks, and we had steam that went back through. And everything is in by ton. For bunker oil, we had 8,600 tons of bunker oil. And on our way over to Japan, we used 2 tanker loads to fill it back up again. Diesel was 187 tons. Gasoline was 9,000 gallons. And portable water is water that we tried to transfer. If we were taken from the starboard side, the ship would do this. So we had pumps that pumped the potable water out of tanks to level the ship this way and this way. And we had distilling units, 3 of them, that can make 20,000 gallons of fresh water every day. We carried 2,700, sorry. We carried 2,700 men, 150 officers, the rest of the crew, and we slept on the bottom and the fantail because that's where we were. My duty station was 30 feet below the water line. And you joined the Navy to see the world? Through a pothole? But I worked on, I learned to weld when I met Jean, and we had an anniversary here in June 5th, 75 years. She's been gone 12, but I still honor those. I carried pictures of her, and on a scale of 1 to 10, she was 50 to 100. I have 2 daughters. Anna's with me. She was born in 51, and Vicki, her sister, was 4 years and 1 day later. And she's the one that's full-time RV. But what I wanted to impress with you was the fact that how big that Iowa is. It was here in, I think, 62 or 67, and they had to lower take more water on to get under the St. John's Bridge, and then they had to haul it up the river in order to find a place where they could turn it around and get it started back out to sea. But one link of the
Chain.
Anchor chain.
anchor chain like this is 3 feet. And the anchor tree, middle is about this big, 3 feet, 1 length. And the anchor is 20 tons. And we have 2 rudders that are 20 by 30. And if you're in the steering engine room, you go chung 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 chung. You can hear it. And our duty was, if they lost control from the bridge, that we had to take over and do all the dials, and so we practiced that for a lot. Then you get into the turrets are on 2, or the turbines are on 2 different levels, and the shaft alley on the upper level, because the ship is built like this. The bottom screws are here, top screws are here, and that first one is about 600 feet. Just, and the tube that is about this, big, 21 inches. And every so often they have a bearing, and our job was to make sure that there was oil in the box at the top, and that there was no oil spilled in the bilges because of fire. So we took 4 hours to go down one side and come back the other side. That was our duty. And then we would, I took a pad with me on the second time because guys were trying to cut out work so they'd fill it up. Well, we had to keep it a ½ an inch below, because if the ship went this way, that oil would go with it. And you don't have oil in a bilge, because we fought fire, and you got about, if you're locked into that section, you got about 20 seconds of air before it disappears and you pass out or die. So we were very careful of what we did, and being that we were on duty, when we left San Pedro, they said, we're not telling you where you're going, we're not telling you when you're going, and when you get there, you won't know where you are, and if you get back, you won't know where you've been. So, how many Korean and the Korea vets here? Nobody in Korea? How about Vietnam? Oh, I'm talking to a strange crowd because
I was in Texas.
I got out of the Navy 76 years ago. On April 2nd of 48. And a lot has happened in the country. And I tell people I came home, and 75 years later, I watched my country go to pot. That's hard.
Yeah.
But maybe God's going to give us a little reprieve here. Of course, if you know prophecy, you know exactly what's going to happen, because there's about 3 or 4 books that tell you that. If you look at Matthew 24, book of Ezekiel, Daniel, and Revelations chapter 4 on, you know exactly what's coming, and you just don't know when. But anyway, that's something different. But it's been an interesting. I got to tell you this, that one of the bathrooms they rebuilt for Roosevelt, if you remember that story. They took a overhead thing where they could take him out of his chair and put him in the whirlpool and pick him back up, put him in the chair. Well, that is still there, and they're making a museum out of the Iowa. And that's why I wouldn't recognize it if I did go, but that's one place that they, are gonna have for really display. The second thing they're gonna do is back in '89, you probably read about this, that the turret, the forward turret, the middle gun exploded and killed 47 men in that one, and that's gonna be a memorial there too. But that turret, just to give you the size of it, is about 40 feet by 45 feet, 18 inches of solid steel over top of it. The barrels are 75 feet long, and a small person can go in the breach and crawl all the way through that barrel, because it's about this big. And the bottom of the ship is powder, 12 to 14 tons of high explosive powder. And the deck on that is 5 inches of solid steel, just for strength. They come in canisters. And they open the canister because of the moisture possible, and they take out 3 bags. And a 110-pound sack of powder is about this long and about this big around. And we could take 6 of those, put it behind a 2,700-pound projectile and throw it 30 miles.
30 miles.
30 miles. 25 was pretty accurate. But when we got to Japan, we rendezvoused with 3 heavy cruisers that look just like battleships, only they have 8-inch guns, and they don't have all of the 5 turrets alongside of it. They just have 2. So we had 3 of those, and next to us was 3 flat tops, and then 4 destroyers, which we call tin cans, and they had tubes and depth charges. So we had the firepower, the air power, and that, and we laid over the horizon on they didn't, supposedly, hopefully didn't know we were even there, but ready, the guns were all locked on, and that's what we did for about 3 weeks. I think we got there about the time that they were dropping the second bomb. But Truman had a I'm giving you kind of a little history. Truman had met with MacArthur, who was the head of it at that time, about if we have to invade the 4 islands of Japan. They had never been invaded in 2,000 years, the mainlands. But we had to go from island to island because of, well, we got the B-29s over there. A B-29 is about the size of a 747. And in that ship, they could hold 50,000 pounds of explosives, or 100 500-pound bombs. And you remember in Europe, when the B-24s got there, they had twice the capacity of the B-17s, but we had the Air Force would have the P-51s, the P-47s, the P-38s would have extra tanks, and they would follow them all the way through the exercise and then come back with them, and that saved a lot of airplanes. But let's see, now where am I going?
I'm just out for a walk.
but our duty was between, Japan and, Bremerton Shipyard. We were taking all the anti-aircraft pods off the ship and getting new radar. And back then, we didn't have satellites. And we didn't have the GPS units, and we didn't have the computers that today you could be halfway around the world and talk to your family. You know, we didn't have that. So if we lost our way, we would shoot the kingfishers off the fantail, and they'd get their maps out to find out where we were, and then we would adjust it. But things are different then than they are now. But anyway, I came back home. When Truman talked to MacArthur, he said that the Navy is telling me 60% was gonna be sunk or damaged. And we had more ships than they did on D-Day. Because of the kamikazes. Now, my brother, that's 3.5 years older than I am, was actually in the Battle of Midway. And so I knew pretty well, hey, the Japanese would take a tube and they would close off the back of it, close off the front of it with 2,000 pounds of high explosives, and they cut a hole and let the guy set in it, and he pedaled it. That was his mode of transportation. And then when he got close to the ship, he had a mask that he could breathe underwater, and he put that on, and when they touched the ship, boom, you know. And so they were worried about that, but they knew they had over 10,000 kamikazes. And my brother told me when they came in the first time, they bet the ocean has the seventh wave is bigger. I can't tell you why, but the ocean people can. And so they hit that and blew up, and so they got up higher, and then they could see them, and they were hitting them more. So then they started this thing down to the ships. But it was different. I remember 3 months before I went in, LaHaye had carpet bombs, and you know what carpet bombing is. They know how far the bomb goes this way, and he had, I don't know, hundreds of planes, and they dissected the city, and the Tokyo is flatter. Hiroshima and Nagasaki is about like Portland. So if you close your eyes and 5 seconds later, Portland's gone. That's what happened over there when that went off, you know. And today we have stuff that blows whole cities up, just small stuff. It's altogether different than what, now you can shoot a missile 1,500 miles away from something and put it in a 3x3 window. That's that accurate, you know. But anyway, I'm home. I'm done.
Don't go anywhere. Dad, you want to come up? You want to come up here with your dad? We got something for you. Ken, she's Master Gunner, correct? Master Gunner Mathys.
Yeah.
on behalf of Barberton Grange and the United States of America, compliments of J.D. Vance's office. This, I actually got this back when he was still a senator. We had no idea at the time, he was going to be the next vice president of the United States. Anyway, we want to present you with this flag that was flown over the United States Capitol. Washington, D.C. Yeah, and just throwing this out there for whatever it's worth, just, when I got the email back, I did said, Senator Vance at the time, an email and asking, what the time frame was, and how long this would take. He said, I'll have that flag to you in about a week. And he didn't sign it Senator Vance or anything, he just signed it JD. Just, just putting that out there for whatever 2 cents it's worth. All right, next on the agenda, I'm going to turn the time over to Tammy.